The night he said he was working late, something inside me snapped. It wasn't the first time he'd said it. It wasn't even the 10th. But this time something in his voice sounded off. Too casual, too rehearsed. I didn't have evidence. I didn't have a smoking gun. What I had was instinct. And it was screaming at me. I stared at my phone long after he hung up. Working late, he'd said, like clockwork. But I remembered the way he barely looked up when I brought him dinner last week. How he flinched when I touched his phone. How he suddenly had new cologne I didn't buy. That's when I decided to follow him. I waited until Thursday. His usual late-night meeting excuse. I told him I was going to visit my sister 2 towns over. He nodded absently, barely looking away from his laptop. No hug, no concern, not even a drive safe. Just a distracted cool. I packed a bag to keep the lie consistent, drove a few blocks, then doubled back and parked down the street. I turned off the engine and waited. At 6:15 p.m. like clockwork he left. He was dressed nicer than usual, button-down shirt, leather shoes, a touch of that cologne. He didn't head downtown where his office was. He drove the opposite way. My hands were cold on the steering wheel as I followed 2 cars behind. My heart thudded like it wanted to crawl out of my chest. He pulled into a quiet, upscale neighborhood. I slowed down, lights off, and parked at the corner. From my angle, I had a clear view of the house he entered. It wasn't just a house, it was her house. I saw her open the door. She laughed, that flirty tilt-your-head kind of laugh. She reached out, touched his chest, pulled him in. He didn't even hesitate. He kissed her. Right there. On the porch. My stomach twisted. My vision blurred. But I didn't cry. I recorded it. Not just because I'd need proof, but because I wanted to remember exactly how it felt. The moment my marriage broke. I watched them through the living room window. She poured wine. He laughed. They sat close. Like they'd done it 100 times. Like I didn't exist. I sat in my car for an hour, maybe more. Frozen. Watching. Breathing shallow. Then slowly the sadness gave way to something else. Fire. The betrayal burned so deep I couldn't sit still. I drove home, hands shaking. Not from heartbreak but from rage. He came home around 1:30 a.m. I was in bed pretending to be asleep. He smelled like her. Like betrayal wrapped in expensive perfume. I held my breath as he slipped in beside me. He didn't say a word. The next morning I acted normal. Made breakfast. Kissed his cheek. Laughed at his dumb jokes. But inside I was building something. A plan. Because if he thought he could lie to my face and keep living under my roof like nothing happened, he had another thing coming. I wasn't going to confront him yet. No. I was going to destroy him. I sat there in the car for what felt like hours. The street was quiet, only the occasional flicker of headlights passing by. I'd watched as they went inside his coworker Jenna's apartment, laughing close, too close for it to be work-related. The blinds were drawn, but I didn't need to see anything more. The look in his eyes, the way he touched her back. It was enough. I didn't cry. I didn't even scream. I just sat there. Frozen. Everything we'd built, every promise, every late-night talk about the future. It all unraveled inside me like a thread pulled too tight. But I wasn't going to walk away broken. Not this time. I turned the ignition and drove home. The steering wheel cold under my hands. My phone buzzed halfway through the ride. Still at the office, babe. Might be late. Love you. I stared at the message until it blurred. He was so confident in his lie, so sure I'd never question him. And maybe months ago I wouldn't have. But things had shifted, subtle changes. Late meetings. Shorter kisses. Eyes that didn't quite meet mine. By the time I got home, I had already made a plan. Not out of anger but clarity. He wasn't going to walk away with everything. He wasn't going to rewrite the story with me playing the fool. I started collecting evidence. The next few days were quiet between us, but I pretended like nothing was wrong. I kissed him when he left for work. Made his coffee. Asked how his day went. I played the part perfectly. But behind the scenes I was watching everything. I tracked his phone using the Find My app he forgot he shared with me. I recorded phone calls. I checked his computer late at night, emails, calendar invites, even deleted messages. He was sloppy. Careless. It wasn't just Jenna. There were others. Short flings, dinner dates, hotel bookings under fake names. He had been living a second life while I kept the first one alive. I felt sick, but I didn't stop. Each file, each screenshot I stored in a hidden folder. I even backed it up on a USB I kept taped under the bathroom sink. I wasn't going to explode. I was going to expose. But I needed to know why. Why risk everything for cheap thrills? Why lie to someone who gave him everything? So I waited. One night I pretended to fall asleep early. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "I'll be back soon. Just going over some reports with Mark." Mark, his imaginary work partner who had become the cover for every night he cheated. I waited until I heard the garage door close. Then I followed him again, but this time I parked farther back in the shadows, careful not to be seen. He didn't go to Jenna's place. Not tonight. He went to a hotel across town. Room 304. I sat in the lobby cafe and waited until I saw him walk in with someone new. A tall woman in a red dress. Younger. Maybe 25. I watched them disappear into the elevator. I already had enough proof. But now, I needed revenge. The next morning I made breakfast like usual. He came down in his towel, kissed my cheek and said, "You're the best, babe." I almost laughed. He sat down and scrolled through his phone, half listening as I told him I might take a trip to visit my sister. "That's nice," he said, not even looking up. Perfect. I needed him distracted. That week, while he was working late, I made moves. I contacted a lawyer discreetly. A woman who specialized in divorce and infidelity cases. I told her everything. Showed her the files. She didn't even blink. Just nodded and said, "You're doing the right thing." But I wasn't filing yet. No. I wanted something more. I started preparing for a quiet exit. Moved my name off shared accounts. Canceled joint credit cards. Opened a new bank account under my maiden name. I shifted small amounts every week. Enough to avoid suspicion. And then came the final piece. I bought a new phone. On it I loaded everything: photos, recordings, emails, texts. I didn't want to confront him in a fight. That would be too easy for him to deny, too easy for him to twist. No. I wanted impact. So I waited for the perfect day. Came sooner than I thought. Our anniversary. He had forgotten, of course. Claimed he had meetings all day. "I'll make it up to you this weekend, promise." I smiled. "It's okay. I understand." I booked a reservation for 2 at his favorite restaurant and texted him from the new number. I pretended to be the girl from the hotel. "Surprise date night? Room 18 at the place you like." I knew he wouldn't resist. He texted back in seconds. "On my way. Can't wait to see you." I left early and checked into the room myself. Wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy. I set up my laptop, opened the folder and mirrored the screen to the big TV. I dimmed the lights just enough. Then I waited. The door opened exactly 40 minutes later. He walked in grinning, holding flowers. And then froze. The screen lit up behind me, playing his own voice. "You look incredible in that dress. You always do." A screenshot followed, him kissing Jenna in her office. Another voice recording played, this time him telling someone named Becca, "I wish my wife was more like you." He dropped the flowers. I didn't move. Just watched. What is this?" he stammered. I stood up. Calm. Controlled. "It's everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every night you thought I was sleeping while you were out being someone else." He tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "No more lies. I don't need an explanation. I already know the truth." He sat down, stunned. Silent. I handed him the folder, printed copies of everything. "This is yours. You'll need it." "For what?" he croaked. "For court." He paled. I picked up my purse, turned off the TV and walked out the door. I didn't slam it. Didn't scream. Just left him there, with the truth echoing in the silence. But this wasn't over, because I still had one move left, and he had no idea what was coming next. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a quiet hotel across town, one that didn't ask questions and took cash. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the folder I'd handed him. I wondered if he'd opened it. If he had, he was probably still flipping through the pages in disbelief. But I wasn't done. The truth was, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure I took back control. He had taken my peace, my trust, and my love for years. Now I was taking back my name, my dignity, and my future. The next morning I had coffee alone. No small talk. No fake smiles. Just peace. It was quiet in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm. By the time I left the hotel, I had a plan. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. We went over everything again. She was more than impressed with the evidence I had gathered. "He won't see this coming," she said, her voice calm but sharp. Exactly what I wanted. We filed for divorce that afternoon. Irreconcilable differences. But we attached the file of evidence too. Not because I wanted to fight for money, but because I wanted the truth to be official. He hadn't just failed as a husband. He had actively destroyed what we built. That night, he came home to an empty house. I had already moved my essentials to a storage unit. My name was off the lease. The utilities were scheduled to shut off in a week. I left one envelope on the kitchen table. "You said you were working late. I was outside watching. This is what working late cost you. M." Inside it was the signed divorce papers. I didn't answer his calls. I didn't reply to his messages. He sent flowers to my sister's house. Showed up at my office crying like a schoolboy. I ignored it all. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was already gone. Weeks passed. His world began to crack. Word had spread at his office. Apparently, someone had accidentally emailed a portion of our divorce filing to HR. His perfect image? Gone. Jenna stopped talking to him. The other women he chased began ghosting him. Nobody wants a man who can't even keep his marriage quiet. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. But I did smile. I used the savings I'd quietly built up to move into a small but beautiful apartment. It was mine completely. I painted the walls myself. Bought used furniture and made it feel like home. I slept better than I had in years. But there was one thing left. See, during the divorce discovery we found something interesting. He had made some secret investments using joint assets. Money he hid under a separate LLC, hoping I'd never notice. He wasn't just cheating on me emotionally. He was stealing. My lawyer filed a motion to seize half. Since it was funded during our marriage, I was entitled to it. It made him furious. He came to my lawyer's office. Caused a scene. She doesn't deserve a dime. But the court didn't agree. I walked away with half of the account. $86,000. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. He tried to take everything. But I took what he never thought I could. His secrets. His peace. His power. And I used them to rebuild. 6 months later, I was living a completely different life. I had changed jobs. Started painting again. Even adopted a dog named Whiskey. One night, while I was walking him, I got a text from an unknown number. "I miss you. I'd do anything to fix this. Please just talk to me." I blocked it. Because the version of me he knew? She was gone. The new me? She doesn't sit in cars waiting outside apartments. She doesn't cry in silence. She watches. Learns. And when the moment is right, she ends things with silence loud enough to shake the world. If you love this story, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories every day. Like, share, and drop a comment, because someone out there needs to know they're not alone.